Hey y'all, it's your favorite sweet girl Sammy, and I have a testimony for y'all today. We're gonna call it Testimony Tuesday today. I thought a couple months ago life was life, and life hit me like a full-blown hurricane. And I wouldn't say tornado, because with the hurricane you get the tornadoes, you get the hail, you get all of that. So life hit me like a full-blown tornado this past week, from literally having several anxiety attacks, to my car being flooded out after like 10 minutes of rain. Right, it all happened in the same week. But within the same week, a lot of joyous occasions happened too. Like, that's why I kind of not understand where it says like every blessing has a burden, right? So if you looked at my timeline, it looks like fashion show, club, concert, club, right? That's how it looked. And that's how it was until Saturday. And it's hard for me to get through it, so I'm trying to get through it without crying, right? So if anybody know me, y'all know, y'all gonna see me with a dog. And if y'all really knew me, y'all knew my dog, Mercy. Well, she's no longer with us. She literally died all of a sudden on Saturday. Can't tell you why. But what I can tell you is that she passed in my backseat 20 minutes from being in my daddy's house in Arlington, right? Crazy. So I thought, I'm not gonna say I thought, I knew it was painful to lose a companion, but I never thought it would feel like it felt, like it feels now, and like it felt that day. So that day, she was acting a little weird, but it wasn't like abnormal. I could just tell she couldn't like hold her own weight. And I'd already called my dad and like kind of like mentally prepared him and myself to be like, something's wrong with Mercy, I don't know what. So she just, like I said, she just couldn't hold her own weight. So when we did, start our journey, she was like, I'm not gonna say she was fine, but she was fine. Like, she wasn't crying, she wasn't in distress, she wasn't like anything like that. She was actually sitting up, looking out the window, everything. I would call her name, she would look up, like all of that. Until literally like 20-30 minutes before I got to my dad's house, I could just tell her arm was in the same position that whole time. Like, I could just tell it hadn't moved from the last time I spoke to her. And I knew it, right? I just knew it. And to the point where I got out the car, and it was crazy because as soon as my dad had kind of been telling me like to hurry up, not to rush me, but just for me to get there. And as soon as I pulled in the driveway, my dad didn't know, he just called me and was like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in the driveway. I'd already knew she was dead. I just had to like make sure. So when I went to the back, called her by name, she didn't answer, she just was there. I had kind of mentally prepared myself to be like, my dad said he was outside, go outside to my dad, and then hopefully I could just cry. No. I walked in the house and I heard, I don't know if it was my grandmother's voice because she wasn't supposed to be there, my grandmother's voice, or my little brother, like their excitement. I guess like their excitement was like either like that opposing force to really like call out what was going on with me. And I broke down. I broke down. My dad was just like, oh, it's because of Mercy. He didn't know like she had passed, and he said her name. And my grandma was like, what's wrong? And I was just like, she's dead. And I broke down. Like, I felt my chest explode. I'm in a season, and it might be like, oh, cliche, whatever, like, you know, people not gonna admit it. I'm in a season of like real brokenness, right? Like, I've experienced break, but like in this season, even though how joyous it is, I am walking through like brokenness and letting God pick up my pieces, right? So he can put it back together again. And I felt like in that moment I went from broken to shattered. Like, I was shattered in a million pieces, to the point like my dad had like the child burglar bars, like where I was like, I had like, I guess, squatted down to break, and they had to continue to tell me like, come through the door, like come through the door, come through the door. I came through the door and literally just collided. Like, I just collapsed on the floor. Like, that pain was just unbearable. Like, it was just full-blown unbearable. It was just full-blown unbearable. And I never thought like I would ever feel anything like that. That was a whole nother level of pain. But with that comes a whole testimony, because in this moment, y'all don't know a lot about my parents. Some people see my mom. Nobody, probably like all of like 3 of friends, have ever seen my dad. And he's watching, and this is for him, because this is something he actually wanted me to do. My daddy a gangster. Like, you can't mess with him. Like, that like type of aura y'all put on me, like, oh, she's so mean, or she's so this, that's really my daddy. Like, my daddy wants to smoke all the time. My daddy straight up said, my daddy's a twin also, so I've had the like privilege to have 2 fathers because of my uncle. My dad even said like this weekend, like, your uncle's a black man, I'm a nigga. Like, so my daddy is with the shits, period. But in this moment, my dad took the time to thank God, like literally thank God for this moment. So like I told y'all, I collapsed on the floor, blacked out for probably like a good 3-4 hours, like of just pure blown tears, crying mess. I finally walk out the room because I'm able to like gather myself, because I don't want to sit in this room, you know, the whole time just gone. Walk outside, you know, and my uncle's there as well. He's like, you want to talk about it? So we talk. Because in the time that I was blacked out, my dad and my uncle had already scooped her up out my back seat, took her to the vet, and she'll be cremated. And while I'm talking to my uncle, he's like, you like surprises? And I was like, what? Literally from the time my dog died till 3 hours later, my dad and God, I would say God and my dad, had figured out a way to get me a whole nother dog. Y'all want to see? So if you knew, my dog's name was Mercy. And so now we have Grace. As my dad said, and I firmly agree with, she's not a replacement to Mercy, because nobody can replace Mercy, okay? But he did not want me to go home alone. And also, he just wanted, this was a big win for my dad. Like, I've never had a like issue with my dad, but like abstinence is a whole thing, right? Just being absent, like, not to say you're a bad person, not to say you necessarily like didn't do nothing for me, because the things I did learn from my dad, I learned and I take with me. But he just wasn't there. And so he hadn't been able to do a lot. And so in this moment, he acknowledged the fact that as much as it hurt, like, this was ordained. Because what happened was my dog died. My dad is them, getting it all together. But in those same moments, my dad's friend reached out to him and was like, hey, the dogs are ready. These were pups that my dad actually was already, gonna get. They just wasn't ready yet because they were just born. And if y'all know anything, the pups y'all need to let them sit for like 8 weeks just to make sure, they're healthy and they survive. And so, as I'm crying, talking to my uncle, my dad drops her in my lap. She is not a bully. But if anybody know me, I just love dogs. I don't care what type of breed, whatever it is. She is a Great Pyrenees German Shepherd mix. So she gonna be like a husky. She gonna be like almost like a big ass husky. She's the runt of her litter and the only one of her color. And her name is Grace. And because grace and mercy follows me for all of my days, period. And to take it a notch further, my dad even called her Saving Grace, right? For this dog to be ready and my dad to have her together within hours of my loss was just a whole thing of how, gotta give you your return back very fast. Go about your business. God will give you your return, sometimes real fast. And like I said, but the best part of that is my dad kept acknowledging how God did this. He literally, my dad was so happy that he was able to do something for me. But he was even the best part, and I even told him, like, we had a conversation after this. I told him, like, Dad, the best part is, like, you acknowledge God. Because my dad, he's not an unbeliever. He's more like Rastafarian, if anything. But my dad knows God. You just wouldn't know it with his practices, okay? So, but the one thing he kept saying through this whole process is, like, I didn't do it. Like, this was God. Like, I didn't do this. This was God. I didn't do this. This was God. Like, I didn't do nothing because my dad didn't pay a dime for her. She was given to him, for me. And we actually have another one. Her name's Angel. So I have Grace and Angel, but Angel is with my dad in Dallas. He just continued to acknowledge, God, and continue to give him glory because he was so excited. Like, it was a win for him to be able to do something for me, but it was also a win for the kingdom because my gangsta ass daddy, like, seriously sat there and acknowledged God for doing this for me. So if y'all ever feel like y'all don't have a purpose, my own dog had a purpose, right? Like, when I say she rode with me all the way up until, like, I got to his house, like, she didn't have that. She had to die in order for everybody else to win, right? If that makes sense. And because I'm a believer and because I work on perspective, I acknowledge it. It's painful. It's so painful. It's real painful. But I acknowledge and agree. And there's nothing else, like, I could do, even in the midst of my pain, is to give glory to God, because the bigger picture was not necessarily to get my dad to acknowledge God, but the bigger picture was to get my dad to worship. And he did, by himself, non-prompted. And the one thing that he did say, though, was he was able to do that because he's watched my walk. Like I say, you might not walk in the church, but you're gonna see me, and hopefully it helps you change. Not change you, but it helps grow you and elevate you. The one scripture I had been, like, bumping into recently is Revelation 12 and 11. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So that's literally why I'm here. Okay. Because I was trying to wait for her cremation box, you know, to just, I'm good with the art. So, like, try to be aesthetically correct, you know, and how I wanted to present it. But it's through the words of our testimony that, you know, that we overcome. So I just put myself aside and was just like, you know what? It's coming out right now. Like, it's coming out right now. And just when you look up at the sky, talk to my baby Mercy, and just know we got grace. Amazing grace. That's all I wanted, y'all. So y'all pray for me, because I'm trying to keep y'all going. But you can ask anybody around me. I told y'all I'm not a bad person. Just life be happening. So continue to watch my life, and hopefully, you know, it'll give you more gratitude. And just know, like, stay up though, because God is watching, and God is in the mix, and God is in the blessing business. So like I said, it might necessarily not feel like an overall blessing, but I'm definitely blessed to have, like, my first puppy that I've raised. And I'm not alone. So to my friends who are trying to figure out, like, if I'm devastated, I am very devastated, but I'm not alone. So we good, she good, and it's good. Until next time.